You are in a swamp. It is evening. All of a sudden, just off the side of the boat, a ripple forms in the water. The party becomes aware that something is moving, something is about to rise.
That is the start of an exciting game, one of the most mystical of all time. Dungeons and Dragons. Join us as we step into the magical world of D&D, plunge into its history, and get tips from a dungeon master who's been running the longest D&D game in the world, and is no stranger to great big story.
Even though players can do whatever they want, there's consequences to your actions.
So let's start our adventure with the basics. Dungeons and Dragons, or D&D for short. It is a game like no other. You can't just simply win or lose. This game involves imagination, role-playing, and endless scenarios. For those of you who have never played it, D&D is about a campaign and how your character acts in it. Here are some D&D basics. You have a dungeon master, who leads the game and is your main storyteller. They are the referee and control the adventure you are embarking on, including the place, weather, characters, and creatures. This adventure is also known as the campaign.
In this scene here, the table has a swamp setting. The party, consisting of 6 different members of the party, are sailing on a boat, coming through the swamp in the evening. All of a sudden, they see a ripple in the water.
That's what a campaign description could sound like. Oh, and that's Robert Wardhaugh, our champion for today and legendary dungeon master. Thank you, Robert. We'll come back to you in a bit. Then there are the characters or heroes. These are the players that will be part of the adventure, and their actions will shape how the game progresses. A character will have certain traits and strengths, which you will need to figure out ahead of the game. There will also be dice to keep all campaigns interesting and unpredictable. The most common are the D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, and D20. Each of them has a purpose. For example, D20 is used to see if an action is successful, whilst the rest are mostly used to assess weapon damage, spells, and attacks. So to play it, you don't need much. A handbook or starter set, plus some character sheets might be helpful. Some pen and paper, the dice, some friends, an exciting adventure, and for those who feel like it, maybe a few figurines and outfits. Now, let's revisit the first ever D&D campaign, the one that gave birth to this magical game. The year 1974. The campaign, the daring creation of Dungeons and Dragons at Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, USA. The Dungeon Master, Gary Gygax. Gary was a dedicated fan of fantasy writing and medieval wargames. He desperately wanted to create a game where you could live adventures like those written by none other than J.R.R. Tolkien. First up, along with Jeff Perrin, he created Chainmail in 1971, who some say was a sort of predecessor to D&D. But it was later that Dungeons and Dragons came to fruition, and Gary worked with Dave Arneson to create the first free booklets of the revolutionary game. These new booklets had rules on how to conduct your campaign and heavily referred to the referee, today known as the Dungeon Master. Through the years, the booklets evolved into books, and the campaigns reached wider and wider into the public's imagination. The game also changed, with new editions adding new rules and new customs being created by players. And the adventure continues today, with Dungeon Masters spreading the D&D magic around the world. Like Robert here.
My first game was in 1981. I would have been 13 years old. I can remember fighting spiders, and I thought that was amazing.
Well, as we know from catching up with Robert in 2017, he didn't stop there. Robert went on to set up his own campaign, which has run until today, non-stop.
I have many players in the campaign who have over 30 years, some even closer to 40 years playing. So it's by no means a solo project that I've created myself over 40 years. Without my players, the game wouldn't exist. Other aspects that would be unique to my game would be the miniature collection, with probably over 30,000 miniatures, all hand-painted. Our terrain collection. So right here and right here and right here are all the player characters that are presently in the game. So there's over 50 active, as well as some who are in the alumni or are retired. This is the terrain room, as I call it. This is where I keep all of the trees and the hills and stadiums and the various forms of vegetation. It's not all the miniatures and all the terrain, it's more the fact that I've been able to keep my friends together for 45 years. I'm more proud of keeping my friend group together than I am of anything else.
Final question before we move on to your invaluable tips. What are your thoughts on costumes?
As far as dressing up or costume pieces, there isn't any of that in most groups that play Dungeons & Dragons.
Better take off our cloaks.
When it comes to providing tips on how to play Dungeons & Dragons, it's a bit of a different situation because the game isn't the same that you're trying to win necessarily, but I can certainly talk about some tips on gameplay. Even though players can do whatever they want, there's consequences to your actions. And so you have to be strategic, and you have to be working with the other members of your group. For example, here we have a swamp setting. We have a lone player, a thief, who stands on a piece of land in a swamp. All of a sudden, the water moves close to him. I would then turn to the player and I would say, what do you want to do? And so because you're working together as a team, it's not just individual strategies, it's group strategies that are going to become important also. Being familiar with your sheet, being familiar with your skills, being familiar with your spells becomes important because otherwise you're going to frustrate other players at the table when you slow everything down. The dice are essential for determining what you can and can't do. So there is luck involved in the rolling of the dice, but you have to use your skills properly, make decisions, weigh the odds, and figure out what the best path to take is in order to defeat the monsters that you're fighting.
Quick, heal me! Heal me! Heal me!
In Dungeons & Dragons, when you're building a player and you're developing that character, you're going to become attached to that character, and as a result, emotions are going to be heightened. But when you're sitting playing, you have to keep control of your emotions.
And an extra tip for you Dungeon Masters.
So if you're the Dungeon Master, you're running that table, and those players are relying on you keeping everything moving. So if players start talking when they shouldn't be talking, if they start questioning rules when there's no point to question the rules, everything's going to slow down. Be open, be tolerant, but keep everything moving.
So that's it. Grab the necessary supplies, your imagination, some friends, and delve into the magical world of Dungeons and Dragons.